It's another high quality podcast action. Good God. How long has it been since we did one of these? Months?
Oh, just a few days, right? What?
Sure. I mean, never
Whoa!
mind.
It's
We're,
September 2018.
we
How did
haven't
I get
been
here?
we
What
haven't been
the?
gone for
What?
an extended period of time.
But from what I remember, there was pumpkins and Halloween costumes and everything, and now it's like,
Almost that time again.
oh yeah, right. Well, I mean,
We're we're totally on top of our schedule and things in our personal lives. Everything's fine. We've been on a minor hiatus. Uh
I moved. That's also kind of important. But
you
and it
did.
didn't take me. It didn't take me months to move, but it was still pretty huge.
Yeah, yeah, you moved. I started started a job.
A
Well,
different
had
job,
started a job, but
or
got
oh,
more into that, and
oh, okay.
you know, that took up some time and all of that
You know, we
fun.
don't have to justify anything to these people, okay?
It's true. It's true. But in any event, we can try and get back to regularly scheduled programming. Yeah,
Yep.
go with discussing the shit show that is the continuance of the Trump presidency, which just shows absolutely no signs of slowing down whatsoever.
It's it's kind of scary, not gonna lie. Little scary.
It has been, and it just keeps getting worse, seemingly.
And apparently everyone except Republicans in Congress seem to understand this because now first yesterday um the Washington Post, piece by Robert Costa, was talking about the new Bob Woodward book coming out
Right.
called aptly named Fear. Nothing to do with the video game. Completely different.
I mean, I'd be
Um,
okay if it was video game related
I think
instead of
that was
politics.
that was a fun game too. Too many
Yeah,
jump scares for me, but
I've never played it, but I've seen it played.
yeah, you know it's accurate. It's an acronym, I think. I think
For
it's I think it means First Encounter Assault Recon or something like that.
I
Yeah.
guess I never noticed that.
Uh, anyway, the book is assembled by a number of anonymous people and some not anonymous people within the White House. But that piece in the Washington Post had Bob Woodward's recording. He actually talked to Donald Trump, and Trump agreed to have himself recorded. And what I took home from that is Trump knows that what's going to be in this book because he even says, "Oh, it's probably going to be negative. Most things written about me are." He's absolutely right because there's not really much positive to write about him. But then he tries to like downplay Bob Woodward's credibility. Like when Bob Woodward wrote about Nixon, among the other many things he wrote about, everything he said was true. So to me, he has a lot more credibility than Mr. Trump does. So I can't wait to read the book when it comes out because that it just sounds like it reads like a sixth grader as president, and everything has to be explained to him every time he wants to try to make a decision. It's pretty Orwellian, maybe. Orwellian? I guess so. I guess it's kind of Orwellian.
Yeah, I could see it being Orwellian in nature. It's what is the second book that's come out now with James Comey's authorizing his own, and then was there another one that I was thinking of, or was that just like an article from another individual?
Um,
Maybe I'm only
maybe
thinking of James Comey's.
maybe you're thinking about Omarosa or Steve Bannon's book. I don't know.
I guess those weren't as high profile as the
What?
Comey books.
Omarosa was making the whole TV circuit about this, and I expect Bob Woodward will probably do the same once his book is out.
Oh, sure, yeah. I guess I just more clearly remember the James Comey thing being more of a big deal, but it's all kind of muddled together at this point, which I think is almost part of the problem. And what kind of worries me about the publishing of Bob Woodward's book, even though he does have a fair amount of credibility to his name, having reported on Watergate in the past and certainly being a reporter outside of that, although I can't say I'm personally familiar with most of the other things that he's investigated or written about. But I think that there's almost not a line to be crossed, but like a point where we've reached an oversaturation of just shitty things that Donald Trump has done, where it's to the point that unless some physical evidence of Donald Trump being involved in major collusion, not unlike the Watergate tapes, comes out that has him on record as physically saying something that leads to his expulsion as president, that most of these books aren't really going to serve as any kind of surprise to anybody. I mean, we know he's a shithead or he's a terrible person, but the more people write about it, it's kind of just commonplace. And I don't know if it's really adding much other than being like, yep, we're just reconfirming that he's a terrible person. Still waiting on Robert Mueller and his special counsel to coalesce all of their evidence against him and try and do something about it. Yeah.
Well, I'd agree there that there's quite a bit, out there reaffirming what we pretty much already know. But at the same time, we're kind of reassured that we're in the right to question the president and to call him out when he lies, and that he is a liar no matter what he puts out on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I want to read this excerpt from the op-ed that somebody submitted to the New York Times.
Right. And this is a whole different thing than the Woodward book. This is something that came out like today or today. It was today, I'm pretty sure.
It was today.
Yeah.
I got home and very first thing I saw when I turned my computer on was about this piece. Highlighted this bit. There we go. Okay.
Right.
These few paragraphs, I think, kind of you get the picture. That's what I'll say.
They embody the whole of the piece, as it were.
Yeah. Quote, from the White House to executive branch departments and agencies, senior officials will privately admit their daily disbelief at the commander-in-chief's comments and actions. Most are working to insulate their operations from his whims. Meetings with him veer off topic and off the rails. He engages in repetitive rants, and his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions that have to be walked back. There is literally no telling whether he might change his mind one minute to the next, a top official complained to me recently, exasperated by an Oval Office meeting at which the president flip-flopped on a major policy decision he'd made only a week earlier. The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it weren't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Some of his aides have been cast as villains by the media, but in private, they have gone to great lengths to keep bad decisions contained to the West Wing, though they are clearly not always successful. It may be cold comfort in this chaotic era, but Americans should know that there are adults in the room. We fully recognize what is happening, and we are trying to do what's right, even when Donald Trump won't.
Well, then, none of that really surprises me. That kind of goes along with a lot of what the narrative has been thus far from individuals who have either been fired or left willingly the White House personal staff or even the cabinet, as it were. So that's
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just reconfirmation of how the White House is now currently being run as more of a daycare than anything.
I mean, of course, we both hold obviously and justifiably negative opinions of Trump, but when I'm reading stuff like this and finding out that, it's true, that kind of fucking scares me a little bit. Like
Oh
this,
yeah.
he's got the final say on a lot of stuff, and he has to have handlers. Like that shouldn't be the case, He's not a. You shouldn't need a bunch of people to tell you that pulling troops out of Korea is a bad idea. Like, I don't get it. Can you imagine if an explosive piece like this came out about Obama or Bill Clinton when they were president? Or imagine if Hillary Clinton was president and a book like this came out saying that she had to have this stuff explained to her constantly and that she was ready to go assassinate Assad in Syria. But like when I read stuff like that, it just makes it all the more real, and it's not just my like feelings and opinions about it now. There's just multiple people knowing that this is really happening, and at least there's someone trying to do stuff about it. But the people who need to be doing something about it, people in Congress, are not doing anything.
Right. Or at least half of them aren't doing anything. The majority of Republican senators and representatives are basically just sitting on their hands and not doing a damn thing other than saying some strong words, heavily quoted, for
Ben Sass
against
is like
whatever's going on, and
yeah.
they aren't doing anything actual, which has honestly been not just the right hand portion of Congress, but the left as well. I mean, for years, it's been this back and forth between strong party politics, and nobody's really been doing much of anything in terms of finding compromise, which we've talked about previously. I mean, it's the whole fault of Congress, with more of a finger pointing at, Republicans, particularly in this case. But it's been going on for decades like this, and there's no easy solution for it. But on that note, more positive note, there have been a couple of elections in state primaries for more, I don't know if I would call them radical, or like, I guess, democratic socialist candidates for, I think there was Maryland just recently elected I believe a black woman for their senator. I'm remembering this terribly, but it was Maryland, and then I think, where else was it?
I know Massachusetts, an African American woman
Yeah,
won the primary over the incumbent and 5-term representative for that district.
right, right.
He had accepted PAC money and done some rather unpopular things to today's current climate. And of course, I forgot her name, Alicia Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Probably the face of that movement. There's not as many candidates as you'd think. Maybe on a more state, local level that doesn't get as much national coverage here.
Sure.
I mean, here in Minnesota, the Tim Walz, who's a Democratic candidate for governor, has openly talked about having single-payer healthcare just here in Minnesota. So these ideas they're becoming a lot less radical amongst people who are not of the, Donald Trump Republican Party ilk.
Sure.
Who still think of socialism as the boogeyman.
Yeah. And I think there is even a line to be drawn on that side, where a fair number of Republicans, even I know some, who aren't on board with Donald Trump at all, and they have just the same frustrations that we do with their senators and representatives not doing a damn thing about policies they would like to see enacted, or they're going about them in such a way that they're not on board with that or in agreement with it.
Um, using Minnesota again as an example,
It-
Richard Painter, he's currently a law professor at the University of Minnesota, but he was an ethics lawyer during the Bush administration, so clearly he didn't do such a good job there. But um,
Clearly.
he he ran as a Democrat in the primary. He was running in the primary against Tina Smith, who was appointed to Al Franken's seat when he left the Senate. But lifelong Republican, running as a Democrat, running for Medicare for all these progressive ideas, and especially he was one of the first people I at least saw adamantly saying that Trump needs to be impeached. And I don't think that's a position that a lot of people are putting their hands on right now.
No, certainly not Republicans, especially. I mean, even if he was running as a Democrat, he's still a Republican, so kind of a mishmash, which I don't have a problem with that at all. I think more people could benefit from looking at both sides of issues, which goes back to the whole needing to coalesce in Congress and have a consensus, or at least a compromise. A lot of alliteration there in that statement.
I think there are certain issues where, you can do that, but I think there are some things that there's only one answer to. Climate change is the one that comes to mind for me. There should be no arguing there. We need to do something. We need to do it now. And this worry I keep hearing from Republicans now, instead of denying climate change and going from, being the party that has a senator that brings a snowball onto the Senate floor to prove climate change isn't real. Now they're bringing out their fiscal concerns about, well, what would green energy cost to the American people? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, now you care about costs? Like, we're in a day and age where you can be working full time and be receiving government benefits. And the only reason your company isn't paying you more is just because they don't feel like it. We're subsidizing a corporation's ability to pay people so that they can keep living. But you're going to tell me you're worried about how much a solar panel field is going to cost. Like, it's the selective outrage that I keep seeing from certain people. And not just on that topic either, But I think there are just some issues where I can entertain the doubles, both sides of the aisle. But I think things like healthcare and climate change, like, there should be no argument. Like, if we want to move forward, we want to compete with the rest of the world, there are just some things that have to be done, and it's not partisan. It's just what needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree, and for similar reasons, but also to add to that, for the issue of how much is green energy going to cost for climate change, who gives a shit? Because we're talking about the health of the entire world. It's not just, oh, we're worried about the fucking bottom line for some company or the federal government who doesn't want to deal with trying to pay for, subsidies or government funding that goes to research in climate change or green energy or any of that. Because as we've seen through this administration, there have been multiple cancellations of programs or defunding of federal programs for climate science and research that just make no sense, that nobody else in the rest of the world is doing anything like that. They're keeping their climate research and climate science programs and their environmental science researchers with the government, because it's one of those things where it's such a big problem to solve. You can't do it just with private companies who might be investing heavily in solar energy, because investments in solar energy have gone up exponentially over the last 8-10 years compared to investment in coal and fossil fuel, clean, quote unquote, clean energy, because nothing's ever perfectly clean. Clean energy research and funding has just skyrocketed. And it's one of those things where it comes down to more of a personality difference, or not just politics, but how individuals who might side with Republican or Democratic ideals view the world. Because if you talk to, say, a farmer from Nebraska, our home state, then they might say that they don't want to pay for that because it doesn't directly affect them. In their mind, it doesn't directly affect them, this having to pay for research into clean energy, because they don't care. They're just worried about making ends meet with, selling corn and soybeans, that
Well,
sort of thing.
tell them how it does affect them. Pretty much. Don't tell them that we're just we're taking your money to research climate science. Tell them
Well, sure.
you're putting money towards researching how they can stay in fucking business for the next couple of years.
Right. The problem with that is that when you go to tell them that, they'll still go about denying it, because you're dealing with, not to say that everybody who's a farmer is a proponent of making America great again,
Well, don't bring
but
up climate science.
when you have that mentality for that, and you have someone who is not blindly following someone, it's not like they're an idiot or an imbecile. They're intelligent people who are farmers and ranchers and, the traditional blue collar working person's careers or jobs, but they need to be, or there needs to be some other form of convincing, whether that be monetary or, it doesn't seem like the same structure of logical argument will work with those people, because we've seen it time and again where, well, they'll just bring some scientist who happens to disagree with other scientists on how climate change is affecting the world or the human contribution to it, because there are people like that who exist, and I think a fair number of them come from Colorado for some strange reason. But
it's the air.
they're out there, and there always will be people like that. So there needs to be some kind of means to effectively communicate how pressing an issue like that is to people who might not immediately see there's scientific evidence for this, and we can pretty easily demonstrate that humans have a profound effect on the climate because of all of our influence with carbon emissions and just the spreading of city and changing of the environment and biosphere for animals. And so, point being, some other method or multiple other methods could use to be introduced in order to make those topics more digestible for certain individuals who may have dissenting opinions when it comes to the accuracy or validity of scientific claims on that front.
I would almost advise using their nationalist mentality against them and call it energy independence or something like that.
I feel like that's been used before, maybe not in the same sense, but that gets kind of dangerous when you start playing with nationalist ideals. At least on the surface, it seems a little sketchy.
Well, it's not actually, nationalist. It's just
right.
because they hold this mentality that we should do things, on our own and no globalization and crud. Like, they don't look beyond Fox News. Fox News isn't an investigative news source. Like, if you're getting materials from other countries to make wind turbines or solar energy or any materials you need for geothermal, whatever's needed for nuclear power, they're not going to investigate into that crud. Like, just do it. Just spin it. Use different words, buzzwords that they really like, because they're very heavy on language like that. I mean, I don't think it would be that hard to convince them. You just have to keep certain words out of your narrative when explaining it. I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah, they love acronyms.
Just use acronyms for everything.
All acronyms.
Yeah. Easy. Hey,
I mean,
I just
it.
thought about this. Speaking of Nebraska,
Yeah, yeah.
what I was back there over Labor Day weekend. Um, the football game got canceled.
I saw that.
I've never seen that before.
It's the first time it's ever happened. There was a tweet or someone wrote about it, either maybe in the paper, that the only other times they've never had to cancel a game ever due to weather. The only other two times they've either had to relocate a game or maybe cancel a game were during or around 9/11 when that happened, because there was a game that was supposed to be played on September 11th, 2001. Obviously, that didn't happen. It got delayed 5 days. And then the previous time to that was they canceled a game because of World War II.
Justifiable reasons.
Yeah, but just kind of the magnitude of the situation, which it's pretty trivial in the whole scheme of things, but it was surprising. Were you going to go to the game or?
No, I had just never seen the cancellation like that before.
Yeah, it
We
was
had
pretty serious weather from the looks of it.
oh yeah, it didn't stop at all. Like once it got going, it didn't leave.
Gotta love
Unfortunate.
those late summer thunderstorms in the Midwest.
And people were upset, like, "Oh, we shouldn't pay Akron because the game didn't happen." Like, it doesn't matter if the game didn't happen. They showed up, they suited up, they were there for the kickoff, they got in the field to start the game after the kickoff, and unfortunately, the game had to be canceled like that. You know, it's not like they did anything
Yeah,
to warrant that happening.
I
You
mean,
paid a contract for them to show up and play a football game, and they were there to do exactly that. Circumstances happened that you weren't able to complete the football game, but they
yep,
did what they were supposed to do on their end. You know, if the same thing happened in Nebraska and they went away to Akron, Ohio, and the same thing happened and they come back, would we be upset that we didn't get money that we are rightly deserved to be paid for?
no, and
So I don't get that.
yeah, we were paying Akron to be here,
Yeah,
so
that's what
all they
you
had
do
to do was
normally.
show up. They don't really care one way or the other. I mean, sure, they'd like to play the game, but when it comes down to it, it's not that big a deal.
I felt
I'm sure
kind
there'll
of
be more people who are pissed that they won't get refunded for their tickets if the game doesn't happen in like week 5 of the season.
my I looked to see who else has weeks off during that at that time.
Yeah.
Alabama has a week off. So does Georgia, and I believe Auburn as well. If if we're willing to play those teams.
Interesting.
Throwing that out
So basically, we would have far more TV opportunities during that week, with some of the top teams in the country being off TV.
there. Hey, they were on I think ABC or ABC or Fox. I don't remember, but they were
Yeah.
on the network.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
was the
Nebraska
main.
was on Fox. I think Alabama was probably ABC. I'm guessing.
I don't know. Anyway,
I didn't watch it, but
I
I
felt
also don't
bad.
have cable, so I don't really pay that much attention to it.
I felt kind of bad because the number of people that went down there. This was going to be like their whole day was leading up to this point, and it had been a decent day. It hadn't really rained. And then to go down there, get in your seats and everything, get the red balloons ready for the first score, and kickoff happens, and then it's get out.
Yeah. But
Gosh,
if they did their day right, they would have been drinking since like 10 or maybe around noon. I don't know. I never
they
got
would
into the
have.
whole
They would
tailgating
have.
thing, but I know how all that went down.
They would have woke up and gotten the warm Bud Light from their nightstand and chugged that thing before their feet ever hit the carpet and their day got going.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sure, that's
Bud
how it
Light,
works.
maybe some PBR if you're a hipster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ohio State game, it was delayed at halftime because of lightning, but they were able to finish the game against Oregon State. Not nice weather to start the college football season.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Football season coming back around. Speaking of football and politics, Colin Kaepernick in the news again with Nike
You know,
and his ad campaign.
I don't really buy shoes that often. Um, I think I have some Nike socks, maybe.
Yeah,
It's
you gonna
not.
cut the swoosh off of them and burn them?
When I see videos like that, I I think about our First Amendment right to protest, and
Sure,
I think that is absolutely you have every right to do that.
you're
You have
entitled to do so.
exactly just like he was entitled to sit during the national anthem. Because I've heard many of veterans and military personnel say that really doesn't defend me at all, and I fought for his right to be able to do that. And
Exactly.
I'm like,
And the guy
gotcha.
who
He gets
originally
it.
suggested the idea to him, because you said he sat, kneeling is what he did. But the reason that he kneeled, or knelt, I should say, was because a either a Marine or an Army veteran told him that it would be more of a sign of respectful protest for what is going on with young black men and the racial oppression going on in the country. And it serves as, instead of sitting for the anthem and kind of showing arguably a little more disrespect than kneeling, where if you have a fallen teammate or something, or a fallen
Right.
comrade, kneeling is the respectful gesture. I mean, people do it at football games. If somebody gets injured and they're out on the field taking care of them, what do the players on the sideline do? They all kneel. They are showing respect and solidarity for their teammate. And it's the same kind of thing that Kaepernick was looking to do with his show of protest, and others as well joining in that, is being respectful to the nation, but also showing a political protest to that same symbol of patriotism, the nation's flag, which simultaneously is a symbol of freedom and his right to be able to do exactly what he did.
I just cannot. I cannot believe how even people who disagree so vehemently about the kneeling, how effing stupid they are. Because I remember that thing with Starbucks where they would give their name as like Trump, and so the baristas have to write Trump on the cup. Ha ha ha. Like what? How are you're protesting a business by giving them your money? Like what essentially what you're doing is like a stupid YouTube prank video is what it equates to, way more than it does a protest. Like someone needs to tell these people what a protest actually is, because it's not burning your shoes or cutting the swoosh out of things. It's Nike. I don't like Nike anymore because of the Colin Kaepernick thing. Well, don't buy their stuff anymore. Get rid of your Nike stuff. And if you're going to do that, I got an idea. Why don't you donate it to a place for people who can't afford new clothing? Winter's coming up. They can use those socks. Why are you cutting them up like that? Come on. You said you
Yeah.
like the veterans. Help them out.
Yep. And it draws eerie similarities to other athletes. I don't know why people burn memorabilia of people's, like when LeBron James first left Cleveland to go to Miami and win 2 championships with the Heat.
And lose 2 as well.
Subsequently, was it 1 or 2?
He lost 2. He won 2.
Yeah, that's right. But that whole thing of let's all burn LeBron James's jerseys, and then he came back to Cleveland and won a championship, and now he's with the Lakers. He left Cleveland, and everybody in Cleveland was just kind of like, okay, we have other problems.
Now he can go lose to the Warriors earlier in the playoffs. That's my take on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I already have little interest in watching the NBA outside of the Cavaliers, and now I have no interest in watching the NBA.
Yeah, they kind of fell off the wagon a little bit.
I mean, they need to. The NBA has a parody issue, and I don't know how they need to solve it if they want to get fans back. I mean, okay, listening to me talk about it, I don't know how well the NBA is doing as far as revenue, so maybe I'm talking out my ass.
I feel like they're probably doing okay, just like the NFL is doing fine, and Nike will be doing fantastically because what it comes down to is it's still an advertisement. Yes, it's controversial, but who's going to go buy a ton of Nike products now that Colin Kaepernick made the news with that?
I might. I get paid on Fridays. Maybe I'll go out shop and get a new pair of shoes. I don't know.
I've never owned Air Jordans before or Air Force Ones. Maybe I'll buy a pair.
You know, I think I already own a pair of Nike sneakers. So I'll probably look afterwards, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they are.
I mean, Converse is owned by Nike, and I have a fair amount of those. I don't know that I need a new pair of those. But in any event, lots of people are going to be putting money towards Nike shoes, socks, paraphernalia, what have you. It's not like it's going to slow them down. You might see a slight dip in their stock, but I think they'll come out far better in the end.
I think they had a slight dip yesterday. I don't know how. I don't know what the deal is today. I haven't looked. Um, John, I got a question for you.
You do.
Yeah.
Shoot.
What's your favorite zombie movie?
Oh, I enjoy I guess I still enjoy the first zombie movie that I saw, which was it Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead? I think it was the remake of Dawn of the Dead, like
Where
the
they're in the shopping mall. That's
2004, yeah, the 2004 remake.
Dawn of the Dead with the super
Yeah.
fast zombies. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there's a new kind of zombie now, and it's a real zombie,
Oh no.
a real life zombie. Imagine Walking Dead in space.
Okay.
Okay.
Be more Floating Dead than Walking Dead, but
Well, you know,
anyway,
just imagine it right now, because I bet it's not. You're imagining something that is not what I'm about to tell you.
probably.
A new study suggests that close encounters with medium-sized black holes can reanimate dead stars.
Definitely not what I was thinking about.
Definitely not. That's right. Zombie stars. A team of astronomers performed computer simulations to determine what happens when a burned out stellar corpse, also known as a white dwarf, passes close to an intermediate mass black hole. The researchers determined that the black hole's powerful gravity can stretch and distort the white dwarf's previously inert innards. I don't know, whoever wrote this, must be having a real chuckle about that. So dramatically that nuclear fusion process can reignite for a few seconds, converting helium, carbon, and oxygen into heavier elements such as iron. So, in other words, black holes can make zombies. Right?
Hmm.
That's the take-home point from this.
I guess so, in a somewhat literal sense. But
yeah, if you explain it really poorly, that's what it sounds like. But
yeah.
now this is more important for a couple of reasons than just zombie stars. So when this happens, they're called tidal disruption events, and they can generate gravitational waves, which are the ripples in space and time that Albert Einstein had predicted, and that the LIGO, that's an acronym. I'm not sure what it stands for.
Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, or Gravitational Wave Observatory.
Yep.
Yep.
Unfortunately, LIGO cannot pick up the gravitational waves as it stands right now, but maybe in the future there will be instruments that can pick that, or pick those gravity waves up. But aside from that, the split-second zombie star existence, this new strategy suggests a few possible ways that we can better examine medium-sized black holes, because one might think that, if you don't know much about black holes, that huge black holes or really small black holes are hard to study. But astronomers have found plenty about small black holes. Talking about mass, those are called stellar mass black holes, and supermassive black holes, which contain millions of billions of solar masses in their very hearts. But the intermediate sized black holes we haven't really been able to examine very well compared to those two stages of being a black hole. So it's important to know just how many intermittent mass black holes exist, and this can help answer the larger question of how supermassive black holes form and where they come from. So finding intermediate mass black holes through these tidal disruption events would be a tremendous help in finding out more about supermassive black holes.
Interesting.
You know what
Very
else is? You know what else is interesting?
Hmm.
So, right now, I would like to give you a quiz.
Okay.
Very thrown off, I'm sure. I
A little bit.
haven't prefaced this at all with you. I haven't gone over what this quiz is about.
Nope. First time I'm hearing about it.
So,
Bit nervous. Kind of
no,
gassy.
no. It's all about black holes. So I'm going to test your knowledge about black holes.
Okay.
And don't worry, it's multiple choice. There may be some words I mispronounce, so be it. Okay? There's 9 questions. You ready?
Jesus.
Yep.
Sure.
All right. The point thought to represent the center of a black hole is known as a centrality, infinitum, or singularity.
C. Singularity.
Singularity is correct. The Chandrasekhar limit is A, the minimum density of a black hole, B, the maximum mass a white dwarf star can contain without becoming a neutron star or black hole, or C, the maximum mass of a black hole.
I believe it's the maximum mass of a black hole. Or no. Hang on. Read those again.
Oh, hold on. Is it the maximum mass a white dwarf can contain without becoming a neutron star or black hole, the maximum mass of a black hole, or the minimum density of a black hole?
I know it has to do with the limiting mass for I think it's the first one. So the white dwarf, if the white dwarf is more than that limit, then it doesn't collapse into a black hole. It's a limit set for the amount of mass that a star can collapse and become a black hole without becoming a more massive object like a neutron star, right?
You're right.
Maybe. Hey,
That is the correct
flying by the
answer.
seat of my damn pants.
2 for 2. All right. Number 3. General relativity predicts that black holes have A, infinite mass, B, infinite volume, or C, infinite density.
C was what again?
Infinite density. This is tough to guess because those are all related.
They are.
So if you don't know it, it doesn't seem like there's a wrong answer, but there's 2.
Right. If there was a D, all of the above, that's always what you go with, but there isn't.
Nope.
If I remember general relativity right, I believe. So what were the choices again?
Infinite mass, infinite volume, or infinite density?
I want to say infinite mass.
Infinite mass is infinitely incorrect.
Hmm.
It has infinite density.
Yeah, I was leaning toward that after I thought about it, but I know general relativity deals with uh, equations for a point mass that made me think infinite mass, but fair enough. Infinite density it is. Makes sense.
All right, question number 4. When stars die, they become black holes. If they have masses of at least A, half the mass of the sun, B, 3 times the mass of the sun, or C, twice the mass of the sun.
Hmm. That deals with the aforementioned Chandrasekhar limit. And what were the choices?
Half the mass of the sun, 3 times the mass of the sun, or twice the mass of the sun.
I think it's closer to twice the mass of the sun.
And you are twice the mass of incorrect, as it is 3 times the mass of the sun.
Hmm. Okay. What is the what's the offhand just random question, unless this is another multiple choice question. What is the Chandrasekhar limit? Like the specific number for it?
Like numerically?
Yeah,
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm gonna look that up. Chandrasekhar limit. Currently accepted value of the Chandrasekhar limit is about 1.4 solar masses, or 2.765 times 10 to the 30th kilograms.
It's a lot of mass.
It's also not 3 times the mass of the sun. It's one and a half.
I didn't make the quiz.
Just saying, I wasn't wrong on that one. Anyway, moving on.
The quiz says you are, okay?
Whatever, moving on.
Every object has a radius within which its mass, if condensed, would require a gravitational escape speed equal to the speed of light. This radius is called the Chandrasekhar radius, the Schwarzschild radius, or the Einstein radius.
Schwarzschild sounds right. So
You are
B.
correct.
Hey,
Hey, look, I
coming
answered
back.
for you. The object to I read that wrong. The object thought to be a supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy is known as Sagittarius A, Alpha Centauri, or Eta Carinae.
Eta Carinae is not a black hole, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the first one. Read them in order again.
Sagittarius A, Alpha Centauri, or Eta Carinae.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Sagittarius A. And isn't it A star? Because
Yeah,
there's a
there's an
there's a
asterisk.
designation after it.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Whether or not to read it, I didn't know, but you're correct. Number 7. Is it quasars or quasars?
Quasars.
Okay, good. My first assumption was right. Quasars are distant galaxies whose central regions are thought to contain A, a black hole that is both supermassive and active, B, an active black hole, or C, a supermassive black hole.
So choices again were supermassive, active and what?
So it's supermassive and active. Active or supermassive?
Hmm.
Real entertaining stuff here, folks.
I think it's probably supermassive and active.
You'd be correct.
Yeah, because in order to have the jets coming out of, or the characteristic jets coming from the quasar, you have to have ejection of material from the black hole in either direction perpendicular to the. Anyway, moving on.
All right. Number 8. If the sun was spontaneously replaced by a black hole of equal mass, Earth would get sucked in. True or false?
True. Eventually.
Eventually. Let's just say, okay, like right now it becomes a black hole of the same mass. Do we get sucked in right now?
Immediately? No.
You're right. We don't. But later on,
Good.
yeah, but it's just many,
Yeah.
many
It,
years.
time dilation and all that fun stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, someday I'm gonna like look up a. I'm sure out there's like a list of like really far into the future predictions of how stuff is gonna go, like about the Earth ending and falling into the sun or something like that.
I mean, if you really wanted to go about calculating how long it would take an observer on the Earth to realize that they were being sucked into a black hole, you could do that. There are equations that you could do, but they're a bit complex.
Okay.
Anyway,
Finally, the event horizon of a black hole represents the density limit of a black hole, the boundary beyond which nothing can escape, or the moment when the black hole is formed.
B, the extent past which light can't escape the black hole.
B is correct, and you, based off the number of questions you got right, are an Einstein. How
Hey,
about
what do you
that?
know? Does that include the one where the Chandrasekhar limit wasn't correctly?
Yeah, I'm counting that as
Okay,
correct. I don't care what the quiz says.
good.
Everything else is right except that, I guess. So it's okay.
Hey, I'll take that,
How about
considering
that?
I've spent a fair amount of time reading up on the stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, fun fact as an aside, but also dealing with black holes and the LIGO project. I was fortunate enough. The wonder of being a staff member at an Ivy League university where a lot of professors in the astrophysics department are involved in astrophysics and specifically the LIGO data analyzing. I was able to attend a lecture either last winter or in the spring for a discussion of findings from the running of LIGO, and had learned ahead of time of the announcement regarding the detection of the neutron star with the LIGO detectors like a few months ahead of time, because the guy who was working on it also was the presenter for that talk. So
Damn.
little fun little fact, my own on time. I could have gone and seen who is it? Wynton Marsalis, the trumpet player.
Really?
I could have gone and seen him, but the line was too damn long because it was a free concert in a small concert hall on campus. So my second choice was sitting in a room filled with physics students and enthusiasts and some of my coworkers, and also a bunch of PhD astrophysicists at Cornell listening to talk about gravitational waves and the observatories and things. Fun little science nerd.
Wow. I have had no such opportunities.
Well, it's me being lucky with where I ended up getting a job. So,
Hey, take it, right?
I'm not complaining. I
So
am.
I just googled the words far future just to see if anybody's got like how far along a timeline has been predicted.
Okay.
And Wikipedia actually has a page that is just timeline of the far future.
I'm not that surprised. It's Wikipedia.
So the gee whiz. So the uh,
Oh
farthest
wow, this is
along,
actually like really detailed, isn't it?
yeah, it goes all the way to 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 56 years into the future.
All right.
I mean, I think by then, most of this stuff is theoretical as
Well,
far
sure,
as.
but let me just read that 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 56th years in the future.
Yeah, just jump right into
Around
it.
this vast time frame, quantum tunneling in any isolated patch of the vacuum could generate via inflation new big bangs, giving birth to new universes. Because the total number of ways in which all the subatomic particles in the observable universe can be combined is 10 to the 10 to the 115th, a number which, when multiplied by 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 56, disappears into the rounding error. No shit. This is also the time required for a quantum tunneled and quantum fluctuation generated Big Bang to produce a new universe identical to our own, assuming that every universe contained at least the same number of subatomic particles and obeyed the laws of physics within the range predicted by string theory. That's, yeah, talk about theoretical horseshit.
String theory.
I mean, it's not horseshit necessarily, but that's a lot of conjecture.
It's like that like comic. I forgot who drew it, but it was about string theory. One guy asked the other one, "Hey, what if all atoms are, all particles are made out of string-like objects? Well, what makes you think that?" I don't know.
Pretty much. I mean, I've read a few books on string theory, and they don't go into a ton of math, but it's it's a theory. There's a reason it's a theory. We don't really have a way to test it experimentally. So, unlike quantum mechanics, which we've been testing for decades at this point, it's, one of those things that it's still a theory and we can't prove it yet, but there are
my,
people who still swear by it
my
because it
gosh,
does it does help figure out some holes in the standard model of particle physics and standard model of the universe.
my gosh, I'm like reading this page. It doesn't just have like far future of Earth. It has like of uh, technology, humanity,
The
spacecraft.
lifetime of the Voyager gold records is 1 billion years, apparently.
Wow, I think if I remember correctly, by 2025 we won't be able to communicate with Voyager, or it'll like turn off. Um, it's like power source will run out or something.
Yeah, the nuclear power source will cease to provide enough power through its radioactive decay to power the long range antenna so that we won't be able to, well, not just that, but it won't be able to power anything on the spacecraft.
Man, that's such a shame. But at the
Yeah.
same time, um, New Horizons not at Pluto anymore. That's on the trajectory to interstellar space as well.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
it's going to pass by some object I can't remember the name of, but a Kuiper Belt object that they'll
yeah,
analyze. And we're still getting information from Voyager 1 and 2, but I think maybe both of them have passed into interstellar space. I know Voyager 1 had like a year or two ago that they finally confirmed that yes, it has finally passed into interstellar space. So those are still the first spacecraft, man-made objects to ever be interstellar voyagers, as it were.
pretty sweet when you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd only if you think about how far in such a short amount of time that the technology was there to even be able to send objects as far as they went. I mean, forget about interstellar space, but
Mm-hmm.
being the first and still only spacecraft, I think, to photograph and examine Uranus and Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
Voyager
Yep.
2. Did you know Voyager
Yeah.
2 was actually launched before Voyager 1?
Yes.
I don't know why I didn't.
Maybe.
That's one of my favorite tidbits about the Voyager project.
Yeah. Yeah. They launched them differently so that they could intercept different planets on the way out.
They both went to Jupiter and Saturn, but Voyager 1 left the trajectory of the solar system while Voyager 2 continued on to Uranus and Neptune.
Right.
And
And they both use Saturn and Jupiter for gravity assists because their speed up.
unfortunately, yep. Um, unfortunately, though, I forgot what I was going to say. Unfortunately.
It's unfortunate that we will soon lose contact with them.
I mean, that's
Who knows?
unfortunate too. Oh, I remember now.
Mm.
The alignment of the planets that we took advantage of comes around every 175 years. So we
Yeah.
won't really have an optimal time to do that, at least in our lifetime. But maybe, maybe they'll send a real advanced probe on the same kind of trajectory and have the same kind of close examination. Because I think exploring space is, I think, really fascinating. You know what all is out there. I mean, because there's still so much you don't know about Earth, and there's so much more to explore in space than we know about. So
Yeah. Well, if politicians and their intertwined military adversaries see fit to fund exploration projects into the universe in whatever 100-ish years, when we have another alignment of planets like that of the original Voyager missions, maybe we'll see more of the close examination of Uranus and Neptune and other further distant objects.
and by then, who knows what kind of technology we'll have to do examinations.
It's very true.
So I know Cassini um, found that like hexagonal cloud-looking thing on the North Pole of northern pole of Saturn, but it couldn't examine it because it was too cold. Like, there's something where technology could have really helped out there.
Yeah. Well, there's still plenty of proposals out there for spacecraft, and like the recently launched Parker Solar Probe that's on its way to the sun, or yeah, because it's going to the sun and then Venus helps with the trajectory
Yep.
around the sun, kicking it into tighter and tighter orbits.
Right into a sweet tight orbit.
Yes. Fun other fact for a tie-in to the history of spacecraft and its intimate relationship with the armed forces military funding. Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody's favorite astrophysicist and Twitter shitlord, he is releasing a book on the 11th of this month, kind of an inauspicious date, but it deals with the interconnected nature of astrophysics and space exploration in the military and how those two entities kind of interlope in that realm. It's called Accessory to War. So,
Accessory to War, interesting.
yeah, something you might find interesting, might want to pick up. I myself am interested in possibly getting that at some point, but I also am still working on 8 other books in addition to the quantum mechanics course that I'm taking. So I might have to wait for that one.
Maybe the audio book, if there is one. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a fairly decent voice for that kind of stuff.
Sure.
a big question. Obviously, at the end of every show, we try to decide what to name it.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about black holes and Bob Woodward's books and all the White House insiders. Why don't we call this high quality black hole insiders?
I don't see a problem with that.
Okay, good.
I
I can never tell whenever you're silent or have no reaction. I have no idea what's coming next.
I'm a hard read.
Should play poker. Hell
I
with this sciencey stuff.
I mean, usually I try to find some kind of terrible pun that we can stick in there, but
I just don't have anything.
yeah,
I need to get back in the game.
it's the first time back after a while, so we got to brush off the dust.
Yeah, I like. So I texted John last night. I'm like, hey, why don't we should do the podcast again because we just stopped doing it for pretty much no reason other than our own laziness. Yeah, so we had no preparation whatsoever. This is just us flying by the seat of our pants.
It went pretty well, I think.
I'd say so. I'm nodding. I should talk. No one can see me. So yeah, I did. It did. It went real good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually a good thing when you don't have video associated with the audio is to enunciate your.
You passed the black hole test, so
yeah,
everything's
all right.
Good. Yeah, decent.
Yeah. All right, I think we can call that quits.
Yeah, I'm
next
quitting.
Maybe next week or the week after that, sometime we're gonna be more regular about this. We'll figure that out. But
we'll take.
Thank you for tuning into. Good interjection. Thank you for tuning into this edition, renewed, shiny, polished, well, not really polished, but
we're already polished.
Shiny version of high quality podcast action. We'll be back with more in the near future.
I'm promising you next week. I will do this with or without you. I don't care.
All right, next week it is.
Great.
We'll see you then.
Peace.